John Smith will pinch hit in the bottom of the ninth inning. Dogs and X's battling for the Central Division lead, tied at 4. John, second on the club with 9 home runs. Ready on lefty. The 2-2 is swung on, and John clobbers one. It's high and deep to right. It's way back there, and it's gone! A pinch hit walk-off home run for John Smith. Oh, baby! And the Salt Dogs have won it 5-4. Oh, my.
It's easy to get romantic about baseball. The drama, the improbability, the strategy, the stories. But there's a baseball world that everyone knows, and one that many don't. One is full of glamour and fame. The other is full of uncertainty and long bus rides. I would argue that the latter can be just as intriguing as the former. This is independent baseball.
For the uninitiated, what is independent baseball?
Well, since often the major leagues refer to themselves and their system as organized baseball, it's disorganized baseball by definition. Their definition anyway.
Independent minor league baseball is its own entity. We have our own, division and our own, we're in the American Association, there's the Can-Am League. We have necessarily less rules that we have to follow because we don't have to check with our affiliate head club.
Well, what is independent baseball? I guess my terminology of independent baseball is that we're not affiliated with any major league organization. We run a professional franchise with a lot of other independent leagues. We have 5 different leagues in this country at this time, which has been a number that's vacillated up and down over the last, obviously, 16 years we've been in this business. I mean, some teams have come and gone and some leagues have come and gone.
I think independent baseball is a great opportunity for players that aren't currently with affiliated teams to advance their skills and try and get noticed by scouts for, to continue their dream.
Independent baseball is a first chance, second chance league. First chance for guys that were not drafted out of college and looking for a place to play. And second chance for guys that were playing affiliated ball, got released for one reason or another, and they're looking for that second opportunity to be found and have their contract purchased by an affiliated ball club. I mean, in its simplest form for the players, that's what it is.
We have no affiliation with major league clubs, so basically we govern ourselves via the league and we're separate from everyone else.
Independent baseball, honest to God, is like the Wild West. There's a lot less rules, a lot less bureaucracy that goes with it.
So that, in a nutshell, is independent baseball. But how about a little exposition? The independents as we know them today were started in 1993, when Miles Wolff, the founder and president of Baseball America, started the Northern League, which eventually morphed into what is now the American Association. That same year, the Frontier League was also started. The St. Paul Saints were a charter member of the Northern League, and the team's current vice president, Tom Whaley, was there at the inception, serving as the team's director of operations. As Whaley can attest, the independents were an intriguing topic back then, too.
There were a couple of books written about the Saints in the early years, one of which was called Rebel Baseball. And Rebel Baseball, I remembered the third book. Here was the deal. We were talking about the books, and I couldn't remember the name of the third book, but now I do. It was Rebel Baseball. Written by Steve Pearlstein, and Steve captured that aspect of it. It was, here were these guys, for the most part, who owned an affiliated baseball that just had this urge to get out and sort of do their own thing out from under the mothership of affiliated minor league ball.
The Saints in particular got attention early on, due in part to their ownership group, which includes Mike Veeck, son of legendary Major League owner Bill Veeck, as well as Bill Murray. Yes, Bill Murray. The Saints have become one of the most widely known minor league teams, not just independent, but minor leagues in general. And they became this way because of an early initiative to favor and embrace unorthodoxy.
So it was a really intentional approach, but I think a way he went, we went about, I guess, in doing it was we set up a front office that didn't have, I was part of the setup-ees, not the setup-er, was putting a lot of folks together who were really passionate about baseball, but they hadn't worked in it before. They were really sharp, good, sales-oriented people who were going to get out and hustle and loved baseball, but didn't, necessarily have any experience working in the game. And I think that helped because we were sort of writing rules. Nobody really knew how to do it. There was, we had an owner and a GM who had actually worked in baseball before. The rest of us had never worked in a sports organization before. So I think that really helped because we were sort of groping around in the dark, writing the rules as we went. And if it sounded like fun to us, well, let's do it.
The Lincoln Salt Dogs have been in Nebraska's capital city since 2001, when the franchise relocated from Madison, Wisconsin. And in a city so dominated by collegiate sports, they have managed to become ingrained as the city's only professional sports team.
It's been a success. I think a lot of people thought the Salt Dogs might be here 3 or 5 years and then they'll just kind of go off in the dust. And here we are 16 years later, and now our 17th season next year, getting ready to gear up. I think a lot of people thought, oh, this will just be the university thing after the Salt Dogs. The Salt Dogs won't, it's independent baseball. People aren't gonna support it, come out to it. But it's been, I think we've averaged over the whole 17 or 16 years over close to 4,000 a game. So it's worked really well.
The teams in other leagues have been many, and like their affiliated minor league counterparts, they have some of the most creative names in all of sports. They are the Normal Corn Belters and the Traverse City Beach Bums, the Grand Forks Varmints and the Aberdeen Pheasants, the Mohawk Valley Land Sharks and the New Jersey Jackals, the South Georgia Peanuts and the Anderson Joes, the Lincoln Salt Dogs, and, yes, St. Paul Saints. The teams currently active are organized in 5 main leagues in the US and Canada. Geographically, they start on the East Coast with the Atlantic League, which has teams in the Northeast and Texas. Then, the Can-Am League, with franchises in New Jersey, New York, Ontario, and Quebec. Moving westward, we find the Frontier League, with teams in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, and Missouri. Then is the American Association, which stretches from Texas to Manitoba, but is mainly located in the upper Midwest. Next, the Pecos League in the Southwest, whose franchises are in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Kansas. And finally, the Pacific Association, which has all of its teams located in the San Francisco Bay Area. So as you can see, independent baseball does have a great reach around the United States with teams in almost every region. But what about the on-field product? Well, some leagues have a higher level of competition than others. The general perception in the baseball world, echoed in the book The Only Rule Is It Has to Work by Ben Lindbergh and Sam Miller, ranks the leagues in terms of competition as such. Tops is the Atlantic League, next the American Association, then the Can-Am League, Frontier League, Pacific Association, and finally Pecos League. One of the major factors for this is roster rules, as leagues like the Atlantic League and American Association pay their players more on average than other leagues. The average monthly salary for a team fielding a full 23-man roster in the American Association is $1,811, although the minimum salary for a rookie in the league is $800 per month. The American Association salary cap is $125,000 for the year. Comparatively, the Frontier League salary cap is $75,000, and the Pecos League has a $25,000 limit. So with the different levels of play in the independents, how do they compare to the affiliated minor leagues? In terms of the on-field product, it can vary from not only league to league, but player to player.
On the baseball side, okay, you're going to get different answers on this. People will say, oh, well, what is the equivalent of the American Association to affiliated ball? Is it single A? Is it double A? Is it triple A? Where does it stand? Okay. My best guesstimate is your upper echelon talent in this league, that would mean the top 3 or 4 guys on each team are average AA players. Okay, they're not obviously superstars or they'd still be there, but they're average AA players. They could probably hit you 240, 250 at AA. They could probably get you a 4 ERA, whatever it is. The majority of your roster is going to be solid single A to high A talent, okay? But they got released because they're 25 years old and they're too old now and there's just no room for them, okay? So they're playing, and their chances of getting plucked are going to be if there's a spot at AA and they'll come and grab that 26 or 27-year-old to come play in AA, and then you better prove yourself. And I mean you better prove yourself, because they have nothing invested in you. The bottom of an American Association roster, let's say 4 or 5 guys, are either rookie ball talent or aren't affiliated talent at all. Like they wouldn't have a spot for him in affiliated ball.
I think it's, when I look at our rosters each and every year, I think we're more of close to a AA equivalent. When I look at some of the players we sign, you know, there's nights you're going to get a pitcher that's a former major league pitcher or a AAA pitcher that's on your team. So you're going to get that type of thing, but then the next night there could be a rookie on the mound. I mean, you're going to get that vacillation in the independent leagues.
I mean, you see some great baseball out here. The difference between our baseball and you see big league plays out here. The difference is the consistency. You know, and Major League Baseball players do it every single time, and in independent ball, you don't see that type of consistency. That's the main difference.
From a balance sheet perspective, the only difference between the higher level independents and affiliated ball is found only in player costs.
I think to a fan, coming to a game, they're not going to really necessarily experience any different feeling being in the stands, and I know from our group runs affiliated and independent teams, and having been around both of them, although I've never worked in minor league affiliated ball, there's virtually no difference. I mean, there are some things from a budgeting standpoint. In independent ball, we pay for our own player related costs, whereas the big leagues pick up some player related costs with the affiliated minors, and then in return they pay a ticket tax, which we don't necessarily deal with any of that in independent baseball. But for the most part, from a business standpoint, you wouldn't, if you went in and looked at both, you wouldn't see much of a difference.
On the business side, there is nothing, and I mean nothing different between independent ball and affiliated ball. The problem we run into in this business, and I think we're getting a little bit away from it, which is good. Affiliated front offices, at least on the broadcasting side, and this is not sour grapes. I worked in affiliated ball. I've been a finalist for affiliated jobs since working in independent ball. But there's this stigma that if you've worked in independent ball and that's all you've ever done, you will not get an affiliated job. But they won't touch you, and there's no reason why. Okay. People in affiliated ball can say all they want about independent baseball. Well, you don't play as many games, but there's nothing different on the business side. If you're telling me the difference between, let's say, working for a single A team, which is where I was in Fort Myers, and here is 40 games, and you're afraid to hire someone because, let's say on the broadcasting side again, because there's a 40-game difference, you're being very close-minded and very narrow-minded, okay? But the business operation runs the same.
Despite nearly identical business practices, almost all affiliated teams have a longer lifespan than independent teams. This is partially due to greater caution in affiliated baseball, but in baseball's Wild West, more chances are taken.
You don't necessarily have the staying, but there's a staying power. There's a fairly rigorous process you have to go through as an owner in affiliated baseball that I don't see at the independent level. There's due diligence obviously on both sides, but the process, an ownership group that's buying a minor league team has to be approved by Major League Baseball. And their due diligence process is quite a bit more extensive. So in that regard, I think you know, and I'll say it, I think they do a better job than we do in the independents. We could be better than we are. So you will see that from time to time. Plus, affiliated baseball is not likely to even consider a market they're not going to take any chances, let's put it that way. And that's, you know, it's a little bit more of a conservative approach on all levels. I think they're that way with players, but they're also that way definitely, you know, with markets too. So whereas I think independent baseball, the opportunity is there for a market to prove itself, you know, and to be around for a long time. I mean, just take a look at the birth of the Northern League in '93. Basically, there were no teams from, I think at that time it was Madison, Wisconsin, out to Billings, and you got a lot of communities of decent size. And just look at the American Association now, which got its start as the Northern League back then. There's some pretty good markets in there that, just from a purely economic standpoint, why wouldn't affiliated minor league baseball want to be in those markets? So I do think, you know, that there's something to be said for the independents, in addition to giving players a second chance. Maybe there's markets out there that affiliated baseball might pass over that the independents will give a look to.
One of the major factors with any minor league club, but especially in the less stable independent leagues, is promotions. Promotions can highly influence ticket sales and attendance, and by extension, can be crucial to the survival of a team.
The promotions are very important to the fact that, you know, it's not necessarily the reason why some people come out. You do get the people who actually look over the promo schedule and come out because they're like, oh, I really want that bobblehead, or I really want, you know, that giveaway that's going on that night, or Prince is my favorite, like, performer. Of course, I'm coming out on Prince night. You do have those people, but a lot of times it's the people who don't even know it's the promotion for the night, who are there and they are enjoying themselves and leave saying, oh my gosh, that was really fun. I would definitely go back to another Saints game. I think that's why it's important, so we can get like repeat customers, just because. And here, promotions are very, very important to us. We have layers of promotions. We have like a day of the week promotion, so like Thursdays, Thursday. So there's one promotion. We have like a main event promotion, which could be, you know, the night is St. Patrick's Day in July. So there's another thing on Thursday. So you have those going on, and then between each inning, we have something going on, whether it's on the video board or a contest on the field. There's so many different things that people can partake in that they probably don't even realize are promotions, but pretty much everything other than the baseball game itself is some sort of promotion around the ballpark to entertain people. So
I think when you have fundamental promotions like our Fireworks Fridays, our Souvenir Saturdays, having a $1 buck night, really a discounted concession night, those are the nights that are going to drive particularly your groups. I mean, your season ticket holders are your loyal fan base. They're going to be here regardless. But you know, I think in order to get that walk-up sale and those groups, you've got to have good promotions tied in. And, you know, and it's certainly a challenge every summer.
They kind of coincide in the fact that promotions are there for the fans that are going to be coming out regardless. I don't necessarily feel it drives ticket sales, but it might bring people back. So maybe that initial time when someone might come out for the first time, they might say, well, we'll just go check it out, see what happens. But really, what draws them in is just the baseball atmosphere, but what might bring them back is something fun that we're doing on the field.
When it comes to creative promotions, perhaps no team in baseball history has done a better job than the St. Paul Saints, whose promotions have included Michael Vick Dog Chew Toy Night and partnering with Minnesota Atheists to become the Mr. Paul Aints. Among St. Paul's promotion-related achievements are multiple world records.
2 years ago, we set the Guinness World Record for the largest pillow fight. We had over 8,000 in attendance were fighting with pillows, but I think the record was 60-something, 6,200, I think. So that was really cool to see. It was probably one of the best visuals I've ever seen for a promotion, and it made it on SportsCenter's top 10. It was number 2. But it was really cool. It wasn't even necessarily our idea. The sponsor, MyPillow, came to us because they're local around here, but they also knew that St. Paul would definitely be the team that would execute it, because we're going to do anything crazy if it gets us, national or local media attention. We just want to be noticed, kind of sort of thing. And then last year we set the Guinness World Record again for the most people squatting at once. And mostly I wanted to do that because I called it the Squat-a-lot-a-thon, and I just really like that name. But it was really cool. Twin Cities Orthopedics sponsored that one, and it was really funny to actually see I knew everyone wasn't going to get out of their seats and do it, but I'd say a good 3/4 the crowd got up and was squatting for a minute, and it was pretty funny. We got less media attention than we did for the pillow fight, but I definitely think it was one of the better nights that we've had here too.
Like the world's largest pillow fight, some of the best and most memorable promotions come to you.
And here's where something that's not very funny or whatever, but was different, catches your eye or your ear, and it catches an edge somewhere. There was a charity, and it was really cool. It was a charity that benefited victims of child abuse, and it was called From Darkness to Light. And we just loved that little phrase. It has nothing to do with baseball, and so we thought, well, this would be a cool charity to do something with. And then when you say that, it's like, well, man, what are we going to do from darkness to light? One of us, and the best idea is nobody remembers whose idea it was. We just said, hey, what if we started a game in the dark and finished it in the light? And it was like, wow, that would be really cool. But that whole thing, it wasn't like we thought of the idea first and then, oh, hey, here's this charity. It started with, wow, what cool work they're doing. We want to do something to support that. And then we just took the name. And yeah, we had a game that was a Mother's Day in like 96 or 97, I think we did that. And yeah, we started it at 5 a.m. when it was dark and turned the lights on and everything. And then on cue, I swear to God, as the sun came up, we had a rooster sitting on top of the dugout. And as God is my word, the minute the sun came over the horizon in the east, and it was like a dead time in the game too. Usually we have way too much stuff going on PA wise. There was just this kind of moment of silence in between pitches, and the rooster crows. It was like, oh my God, you can't write that stuff. Of course, we did have the rooster mic'd. It was awesome. We were hoping he would do it, and he did.
The wackiness of their promotions has become a signature part of the Saints organization, another of whose traditions includes having a trained pig serve as a ball boy. This can also lead to promotional opportunities.
But we did some fun stuff. We did one at the end that was very funny. We have a hog that's our mascot, ball boy. And we did a pig roast at the end of the season, which everybody was horrified by. They thought we had, done the poor animal in and we're gonna eat him. And we didn't necessarily disabuse folks of that knowledge. The SPCA went crazy and threw up a picket line out front and all this. And our giveaway as you came into the pig roast was those little plastic packets with the knives and the forks and all that stuff. Which further enraged the politically correct. When he came in, and then at home plate there was a smoker that had smoke billowing out of it and all that. We of course meant it as a Dean Martin type roast, or Don Rickles, not an actual roast of the animal. So that one was really fun, and it was things like that where you do that once and you see the reaction. People had the same reaction we did. We laughed when we thought about it. They laughed too. It's like there was just that connection between the ownership and the people running the team and the people who were, giving us their money to come see it. That we had a shared sense of that's kind of funny, and create a conversation and all that. So.
In the spring of 2016, an outfielder from Emporia State University, an NCAA Division II school in Kansas, signed to play for the Kansas City T-Bones of the American Association. The outfielder immediately struck spectators as unorthodox. Instead of batting gloves, he used work gloves. Dalton Wheat used those work gloves to hit .335 and would have his contract purchased after the season by the Miami Marlins.
There's no reason for independent baseball to exist if you accept the premise that the major leagues never make a mistake on a player. If they do make a mistake on a player's ability, where he's at in terms of injury or draft status, all that sort of stuff, then independent baseball makes total sense because we're basically a second chance. And from a development standpoint, we fill that gap. And if a player needs a second chance, if he's a victim of numbers, a victim of injury, a victim of whatever in the affiliated system, independent baseball is here to give that player a second chance. And that's really what it is. I mean, it's independent baseball, but it's second chance baseball is really what it is.
Almost all leagues in the independents have rules regarding the players on their team's rosters. Some, like the Frontier League, limit how old players can be. Others, like in the American Association and Can-Am, limit the number of experienced players and then require a number of players with little to no experience.
A rookie has played either no years or 1 year of professional baseball. You get 2 years as a rookie, your very first year and then your second year, okay? After that, you become what's known as an LS, and then a number following that, which is league status, whatever. So your third year, you're an LS1. Your fourth year, you're a 2. Your fifth year, you're a 3, so on and so forth. It goes LS1, 2, 3, 4, 5, veteran, and you cap off at a veteran.
American Association rules require a minimum of 5 rookies on the roster and no more than 5 veterans. Can-Am rules require a minimum of 5 and maximum of 8 rookies while limiting each team to 4 veterans. As far as the players go, they come from many different places. They are from the United States, Canada, Venezuela, Cuba, Netherlands Antilles, Japan. They are teachers, police officers, and coaches. Some find ways to play baseball all year round. They are former major leaguers, former minor leaguers, high-profile signees that didn't pan out, or players that never got the chance to play affiliated ball. Some play for a second chance, some are working their way back from injury, some are reinventing themselves. But while the independents can on the surface seem highly diverse, in reality the diversity can depend on the team or even region.
Literal definition of diversity in terms of race and religion and all that other stuff. It depends on the manager. Okay, now you have to remember in this league, we're not the major leagues. Major league money doesn't trickle down to us. And you have to remember this league goes to Canada. To get someone that is a Latin ball player, or like 2 years ago, so 2015, we had the best shortstop that I've ever seen defensively in this league, in the Saints organization in my 10 years here, play for us in Anthony Phillips. He was South African, okay? And he had what he felt like or thought was the right paperwork. On our first trip to Canada, we sat there for whatever it was, 2.5 hours, even though he had what he had been told was the right paperwork, because he's not an American citizen, he's not a US citizen. So it's not as easy as, hey, show your passport. And so in order to have Latin ball players or guys from other countries go into Canada, it costs money. And there's a lot of things that need to get done. Well, major league organizations, they still have to go through all that, but they can afford to pay the money. And we're not talking exorbitant amounts in a lot of cases, but in some, you know, it could cost you $1,000, $1,500, which for some organizations is a lot of money. So you need that. Plus, sometimes you need to fast track it, okay? If you bring a guy aboard in April or May, okay, because he just got released by an affiliated organization, well, he now needs a different work visa because he's coming to a different state. So sometimes it's not that easy. It makes it more difficult. Major league teams can fast track it, harder for us to do. Again, it costs money and we don't have it. But it depends on the manager. You know, in my time here, you know, I'll be honest, predominantly been white, but that's, again, it's not because of our manager says, well, I'm not going to sign a Latin guy, or I'm not going to sign an African American guy, or whatever it may be. If you look at the numbers in baseball as a whole, African American ball players are considerably down across the board in baseball. Now Latin American guys make up a good you know, percentage, whatever it is, 15, 20, 25%, but they're not as accessible to come play in St. Paul, Minnesota. A lot of those guys are going down to Texas, where there's sort of the connection, because a lot of them have played down in Mexico, or they've played in the Latin countries. And so a lot of the guys that own teams in Texas or have that rapport with the teams in Texas have that rapport with the Mexican leagues or, you know, the Latin countries down there. And so there's sort of that pipeline that goes there. There is no such thing as that up here.
In terms of travel, the conditions for the players aren't always the most convenient. In the affiliated minor leagues, all levels but AAA bus from city to city. However, those leagues are always regionally concentrated. In a league like the American Association, teams embarking on long road trips have intimidatingly lengthy bus rides to deal with.
It is never as glamorous as everyone thinks it is. Now, you're on a bus, and it's worse for the teams furthest north and furthest south. And we're obviously the second furthest team north, with Winnipeg being the furthest, because the bus trips are going to be longer. And as I mentioned, the only place we'll fly is down to Texas if it begins a road trip. Okay, so like last year we were on a 14-game road trip, but it started in Joplin, Missouri, and it went from Joplin down to Laredo, and then Amarillo, then Sioux Falls back home. So we drove all that. It was like some 3,300 miles or something like that when all was said and done. And so you're on a bus, and it's you and roughly 28 other people. I mean, you got a manager, you got whatever your coaching staff is, usually your athletic trainer. Most teams travel with a clubhouse guy, and then all your players. And some teams will even bring, you know, an injured guy if he could be off the disabled list sometime during that road trip. So you're all on this bus together, and everybody's got different buses. Ours is such that it's a coach-style bus, and the seats fold into beds. So what that means is, so if you imagine a chair where this is your back and this is the back of the chair folds up and the bottom chair folds down, or the seat of the chair folds down. And if you were to line the backs up all across each other, you've got beds, and if you line the seats all along each other, you have beds. But you also have to remember they're actual chairs, so they have dips in, or the backs, you know, kind of curve. So when you're laying on it, it's not this smooth, flat surface. There's this little curve in every single, so if you got a bad back, it's awful. And it also depends upon the person sitting behind you. Do they want to put the bed up or not? If they don't, well, there's nothing you can do. You know, if they don't want to lie down, they want to sit down, you've got like half of a bed, which doesn't do you any good.
The biggest issue we have is the travel, the stretch. We're fortunate because we're kind of right in the middle. Lincoln's kind of in that, what I would say, the pivot point, because we can go anywhere and get to, whether it's Sioux City 2 hours away, or Kansas City 2.5 hours away, Wichita 4.5 hours away, you know, St. Paul 6.5 hours. I mean, it's not like it's monstrous travel, other than when we got to go south to Texas. I mean, the Laredo trip is...
We're Laredo or Winnipeg? Who's taking that bus ride? I mean, sorry, we do. I apologize. I shouldn't have said that.
So how much do players get paid to be on these bus rides? Well, while the American Association has a minimum rookie salary, there is no technical limit for an individual salary.
Anybody can be paid anything. Rookies, I don't know, unless a second-year rookie, but most rookies are going to be $800 a month. That's the floor. The ceiling is whatever. You can pay a guy $10,000 if you want to. And I believe the rule is your highest contract counts only 50% of the salary cap. So if you pay a guy $10,000, his cap hit is only $5,000. Okay, and that's per month. So $10,000, they pay him monthly. So it's $10,000 be $5,000 per month.
In reality, there are no shortage of free agent baseball players. And if a player doesn't perform, it's only a matter of time until he gets cut.
No, that's the toughest part of the job. But I mean, it's amazing, you know, when you talk to the players, they know it. I mean, it's one of those things. It's not like you release somebody, and it's usually because you find a better player that's come in, or the other side of it is that they just can't perform at this level, and they need to move on. And we try to, that's one of the things that Bobby and, you know, I think us as an organization, we pride ourselves in. If we do release a player, we try to find them another spot, whether it's in the the Pecos League or to the Frontier League, because those are some of the things that, we either cannot get them enough innings here, or we can't get them enough at bats, and where we can try to get them into a league that they're going to get that and see if they can perform at that level and come back. Because there's chances. I mean, we have re-signed guys that we've released, but that's the toughest part of the job. I'll be honest with you. It's never fun telling somebody that they're done.
There has been a fair amount of change in the number of former major leaguers that appear on independent rosters. In the early years, former stars such as Darryl Strawberry and Jack Morris played for the Saints. But taking a look at the 1995 St. Paul Saints roster, it included 7 former major league players. Compare that to the 2014 Saints, which had 1. The reason for this is due to both change in the independence and in the way that Major League Baseball operates.
I think the rules largely are the same as they were back then. 2 things I think. I think the big leagues are using AAA. Before they would just cut a guy. Now they're using AAA as like a taxi squad. It's not the I was going to use a phrase that was off color. This is subject to FCC rules, is it? Your more shit-hot players come out of AA. That's where they bring them from. So if a guy's a really hot prospect, if they think so and they're not quite sure and he needs a little more work or whatever, they move him to AAA or whatnot. So or if the guy's maybe has a nagging, I don't know. AA is from a competition standpoint is where it's at. AAA less so, and I think they maybe keep players a little longer than they otherwise might. I think that's part of it. Plus, too, the Atlantic League came along and they have a larger salary cap, and it sort of defies logic if you have an organization like St. Paul where we have a proven track record of moving guys from our team, back into affiliated ball and even to the big leagues. I mean, we've got 21 guys, I think, now. If you take that track record but match it up against another $3,000 a month that the Atlantic League might pay them, it seems kind of silly to somebody who's played at the big league level, but they count. The players count. They're like, oh, well, Newark values me $3,000 a month more than St. Paul does. I'm going to go play in Newark. Okay, go play.
The modern independent leagues have changed in more ways than one since they were first started in 1993. In fact, they were never even intended to be as resilient as they've proven.
The whole mindset back then was, and Mike Veck will tell you this too, was independent baseball, everybody says it can't be done. Let's just go in there and do it for 2 or 3 or 4 years, stick our flag in the ground, try not to get killed on a financial level, and say we did it and move on. There was never to have a league that's, going into its 25th year or have clubs going into their 25th year. That was never the vision at all. They had a really short-term view, I think, of what they wanted it to be.
So with everything that's changed since the inception of modern independent baseball, the question must be asked, what is next?
I hope independent baseball stays around forever. I mean, the odds are everything comes in a cycle, and at some point it may go away, but it's it kind of needs to find a next life. It's approaching a second generation, and it's going to be interesting. To say that, it sounds crazy, but it's approaching a second generation right now. It's 25 years in since the whole thing got started. How's the next 25 going to be? And it's going to necessarily need to be run by different people. And are they going to do as good a job as the guys who got it to this point? I think when you start something, that's a pretty special thing, and when you keep it going, it's usually because of the people behind it. And it'll be interesting to see if that sort of second generation of owners and operators is out there to sort of keep it going and hopefully build on it.
We got to continue to fine-tune what we do, and we have to make sure that our smaller markets, if they're struggling, what can we do to help them? Because we're only as strong as our weakest link, and we just got to continue to, the Sioux Cities and the Sioux Falls and those that have smaller attendances, what can we do to help those guys be successful?
And now, nearly 25 years later, it's become so much more than its original intention.
What in your mind is the best thing about independent baseball?
What's the best thing about minor or the independent?
About independence, yeah.
Not having to answer to an organization. We couldn't get away with a lot of the promotions we do in affiliated ball because you're always worried about you're representing the major league ball club.
To me, telling me who's going to manage here, who's the manager I'm going to work with. Where here I go out and I go ahead and I hire my manager, and we create that working relationship and figure out what or how we're going to do that each and every day. That's the flexibility that I love anyway about what we do.
Less rules, I mean, it really is. When you sit in an owner's meeting, it's all right there, and we talk about these things. Sometimes we don't do them, but there's a real power at the independent level to change things and be different and try stuff.
I would say first is the promotions, and also second would be customer service. We provide, that's one of the heaviest things that we rely on here in St. Paul, I should say at least, is customer service and treating the fan like they're the only person in the ballpark.
If I worked for a single A or double A club, we may not have the same flexibility to do things because that final answer, if I need an answer, it may come from my internal office, or it might have to go up the ladder, because there's an ownership group that's going to be looking after their investment, and rightfully so.
I like it because the guys are hungry. I worked in hockey for 18 years and had that great experience of guys wanting to get to that next level. The guys that play here they desire to continue their career for that dream.
We don't have to answer to anyone here. We have the freedom to do what we want, to poke fun at whoever. I mean, the Saints have poked fun at the commissioner, not the newest one, not Rob Manfred, but Bud Selig on a number of occasions. If you were an affiliated club, there's no way you could do that. So,
I mean, the organization level is, from a league standpoint, is super flat. It's in our case, 12 guys in a room deciding what they want to do and try and all that, and stuff changes from, the international extra innings rule, exhibit A of, being able to try stuff and try to figure out from a baseball standpoint, but also from a marketing standpoint, what works.
It really is easy to get romantic about baseball. I've had this strange obsession with independent baseball for some time now. To me, it represents the ultimate underdog story. A league built around the rejects of baseball, having success outside of the establishment. The most intriguing thing about it is the people. People who love baseball. People striving for success in the periphery of the national pastime. People who, like me, are in love with the turbulent, uncertain, inspiring, beautiful world that is independent baseball.
Let's talk about the best thing I've ever done in independent. I spent a whole day with Buck O'Neill once. That was fun.